Thank you to all of the rest of our sponsors as well. You'll see them on the screens throughout the room, and we do really appreciate their support because it would be very difficult to run this event without their support. And I'm really just grateful also for all of you here as members of the various advisory councils. We have a lot of alums here. Where are all the alums? That should be pretty much almost every person raising their hand. That's a great sight right there. That's a photo op, okay. And friends of the university, your ongoing support, knowledge, and philanthropy have really helped shape the success of not only the university, but the Villanova School of Business, so we appreciate it. We have a number of faculty, staff, and students who have really helped to put this event together, and they plan like months out. So any of those faculty, staff, and students who have been involved, could you all just stand so we can publicly thank you? Come on, you can stand. Come on, I know I got a bunch back there. They're already standing. Where are they? Come on. Now, as you may have recognized, those of you who've come to the 8 previous Business Leaders Forum, that we've changed the structure and set up a little bit. And we really did that because we wanted you to have a little bit more time with your advisory councils and for that to be a little more flexible. So as you can see, what we're doing now is we're doing this morning meeting, and then following this, right after, will be all those different advisory council meetings. And that'll be interesting too, because you'll get to see the campus when a lot of people, there's a lot of hustle and bustle on campus and a lot of students are around. And as Father is going to talk about in a little bit, a lot has changed on campus. A number of you have come back and said, wow, it looks totally different. But we really encourage you to get out to see what campus looks like, obviously after your advisory council meeting or right before. But there's been a lot of great transformation. And then if you have the chance, many of you will be back over at the business school. Please take some time to look around the business school, because all the efforts that you have made, not only to come back and to do things, but just your philanthropy has really enabled a lot of that to happen. So we want you to be able to see a lot of that. But before we get into all the details about what's going on at Villanova and at the Villanova School of Business, I'm really happy to invite our very own School of Business Augustinian, Father Craig McMahon, who is an assistant professor of economics, and he's going to lead us through reflection this morning. So, Father Craig.
Thank you, Dean Russell. Let us begin in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So I know what you're thinking. How can there be a prayer or reflection that has anything to do with the strategic planning process and committee meetings and all of the visionary activity happening on campus and in the business school? And then, if such a prayer exists, how could it be Augustinian? Well, as it turns out, 1,600 years ago, St. Augustine said, "If we think we have gone far enough, we will not take another step. Let us continue, therefore, going forward, walking towards the goal. Let us not stop halfway along the route, or look backwards, or stray from the path. For someone who stops does not make progress." And so we pray today, Father, as VSB plans and prepares for its future, help us to take those next steps. Help us to move forward. Help us to continue to focus on our Augustinian values that have served this community for generations. Help us provide our faculty, staff, and students with the inspiration and moral compass to navigate our way toward the goals that you place before us. And we ask this through Christ our Lord.
Thank you. Oh. Is that good? So thank you, Father Craig. We have been blessed having Father Craig on our faculty, and we'd like to thank Father Peter for finding us such an outstanding faculty member, both in terms of academics and spiritually. So we're really excited about that. So it's now my pleasure to introduce Reverend Peter Donohue to provide some brief remarks about the many exciting things happening at the university, including continued progress on our new university strategic plan. So as many of you may know, Father Peter became the 32nd president of Villanova University, and he's in his 13th year. Lucky 13, okay. Under his leadership, Villanova has charted a course of significant transformation that includes embarking on an ambitious strategic plan, launching the university's largest and most successful comprehensive fundraising campaign, initiating a vibrant physical campus renovation, and dramatically expanding student opportunities. Bolstered by this vision, the university has introduced new initiatives, become more nationally recognized for its academic prowess, and broken university admissions records. So we are all blessed to have Father Peter's leadership. And I know for me personally and for many of you in here, we say this must continue for generations to come, Father Peter's leadership. So thank you, Father. He's going to speak for about 15 or 20 minutes, and then he's going to open it up for some Q&A. So with that, Father Peter.
Thank you. I normally don't, get up and walk up the stage as I'm being introduced, but it takes me a little longer now. And if you haven't heard the story yet, I've been telling it for the last 6 weeks. I tore my meniscus, and I didn't do what the doctor told me to do, and so I fractured the kneecap. So that's what's happening. Friday, tomorrow, is the big day to get off these crutches, so I'm very happy about that. And I'm sure all of you are very excited to see that there's some young Augustinians here on campus that do not have gray hair or don't have any hair at all. So Craig came to us last year, or I should say in January. He just finished his PhD at Cambridge University, and he's an economic historian. Where are you, Craig? Over there. Yep. Thank you for your prayer. So thank you, Joyce, and thank you for the invitation to be here. I'm going to give you just a few updates about what's going on, and the provost is standing in the back of the room. So come on up, provost. You got a seat right up here. And if I get anything wrong, he will quickly correct me. So we did this. If I stay back there, I was going to leave. I thought you were just going to leave once I started talking. So, but we did this whole back and forth thing for the opening of a campus, so maybe he can help me out as I get to that point. There's a lot going on campus, and a lot of things are happening, and I find myself at times, year after year, I never cease to be amazed by our students, the faculty, the staff that we have here, and our alumni and the accomplishments that they have done, and none of what the university has been able to accomplish over the last several years could be possible without all of your help, as well as the students, faculty, and staff. There are so many things that are done here day in and day out that make Villanova what it is today. And first and foremost are the incredible group of students that we invite to take part in Villanova. They challenge this community day in and day out. We have 15 endowed faculty positions that were created due to the campaign. We are attracting world-class faculty who have dedicated themselves to impeccable research and dedicated teaching. And that's what we really look for in our faculty, to be teacher scholars, people that are working closely with our students and inviting them to take part in the research that they're doing. And so that together as a community of faculty and staff and students, we continue to add to knowledge. And that is really the first and foremost responsibility of any university or college, is to add to the field of knowledge. In terms of financial aid, the gifts to the campaign more than doubled the number of endowed scholarships that we're offering, bringing the total to about 504 right now. And many of the most accomplished students are studying at Villanova with the assistance of the scholarship funding that is provided for them. We believe very much in student-centered living and learning environment, and that's really what we're trying to accomplish here at the university in terms of many of the renovations that have been done to all of the old residence halls. The only one left is St. Rita. That will be done next summer, but after that, every residence hall has been modernized, air-conditioned, new bathrooms, new plumbing, new electric. And some of you may have heard that in the last several weeks we've had mold that has also invited itself into our residence halls, but we're working to keep that checked. It's been a little damp around here lately, so things have been a little rough. But so the footprint of the campus is really designed to help our students live in this kind of living and learning environment and to be connected in one way or another. The new residence halls that are going up on Lancaster Avenue will be the first time that classrooms are actually in the buildings. So there will be classroom spaces in all of those 6 buildings. So there will actually be teaching going on within those apartment complex over there. As I'm sure you noticed it as you drove in, that the big parking lot is gone. The big asphalt parking lot, I should say, is gone. Those buildings have risen up out of the ground, and a lot of work has been done over the summer, particularly on the stonework, so they're really coming together. In a couple of months, when you come back, we'll be able to kind of walk you through it, but you can see a lot of what's happening into it. The parish church that functions on Sunday mornings here, many of the young kids that come here walk out and look over the bridge and say, oh, Hogwarts is coming up. So the Harry Potter is moving in soon. Those buildings will open in August, this next August. We already have 800 seniors who have signed up for them. So we are moving along with that. Some of them will be juniors who live in those buildings as well, which will enable us to get rid of the freshman triples. So that's something that we really desire to do. Tomorrow at 6 o'clock or 5:45, I should say, the doors will open on the Finneran Pavilion. And it is amazing. I was in there yesterday, and it still has, they got a lot to do between now and Friday, but there's a lot of cleaning to do, but it is amazing. It's a transformation of that building, and I think all of you will be amazed how it has changed. The shell is still the same. The number of seats are still the same. It's a very different structure, a very different look, very different feel to it. It really celebrates the history of men and women's basketball at Villanova. And the building will be used for numerous things over the course of every academic year. But it is a nice transformation to it, and I think all of you will look forward to seeing it. And of course, across the street from the field house, the steel is almost completed on what will be the Performing Arts Center. So that is, you know, there are a few people on campus that really wanted to see that done, and so I accommodated their desires. The Mendel Field landscaping project is kind of the 4th stage of the landscaping transformation, the pavers, the shrubbery, all the steps, the granite steps. And we've had a little setback with that. That's been going on for the last 2 years now. But this summer, as I said, we had a lot of rain here. And all of that mud field turned into a huge mud pond. And there was very little work that they could get done on it. So it will be an early Christmas present for all of us. So, but unfortunately, the delays have happened, but it will look great by January, I promise you. Last month, the U.S. News and World Report ranked us number 49 among national universities. We are very grateful to still be in the top 50. Pat would be very eager to tell you that the reason why it's 49 is there's been some changes in the methodology that took place this year. But we're still hanging in there, so we're very pleased with that and the placement that we've had. We experienced a record number of applications for this year's freshman class, and it's been amazing exactly how many there have been. We had over 22,000 applicants for this freshman class to fill 1,686 spots. So it's become a very competitive place to get into, and some people are very happy about that, and some people are a little saddened by it, but it has become a very difficult place to kind of maneuver your way into. The admissions office, we expect a bigger number this year due to an event that took place in San Antonio back in April. It seems like when a championship happens, particularly in the national level, that the influx of admissions goes up. It's happened in our 2 previous times, and we expect it to happen again this year. So we're expecting more. There's been a lot of activity in terms of admissions. We've had nearly 17,000 visitors this year since the end of the school year, since May. So over the summer, we've had nearly over 17,000, and we expect to see a big impact on that. We've celebrated very much. We continue to celebrate our community as a place with a mission of restlessness, and we talk about that all the time. It is really throughout St. Augustine's spirituality and his theology, his writings, that all of us should be restless for more. Father Craig used that idea in the very notion of his prayer this morning, but this community continues to nurture that idea amongst our students. I say to them all the time that, you know, in St. Augustine's word, we are a community that is constantly becoming what we are not yet. And it is a movement forward in how we continue to discover new things about ourselves and how we continue to improve it. So we look forward to our future. And right now we are becoming, I think, a better university, an even greater Villanova. I continue to say, as I've said for many years, it is being a better Villanova that is our true aim. We don't want to be anyone else. We want to be better at what we do. And we know, all of us know what we do well. We know what this campus accomplishes, what this university has accomplished for over 175 years, and the men and women that have come from this place, the change that they have ignited in their own communities. So we are in the process of shaping a new plan. Our last strategic plan has kind of come to an end. We've accomplished a lot of it. Certainly our campaign has given us a lot of fuel to finish that strategic plan. Many of the things I mentioned in the beginning of this speech were things that were part of our strategic plan, and so the $760 million campaign has allowed us to accomplish many of those things. And so it is time for us to move on, and we're in the process of doing that. And right now, the provost, Dr. Magidi, has been overseeing the strategic plan over the last several months. And this time around for us, it's been a very ground-up process. The former strategic plan, it was the first time we had ever invited an outside consulting company to come in when the last time we did it. And I would say that we were a little more top-heavy at that point. McKinsey company came in and the last time and helped us to formulate our present strategic plan, the one that's just coming to an end. And because it was the first time a consultant had come in and helped us with that process, there was a little more help from them that we really needed to kind of formulate that. So this time around, we invited McKinsey to come back again, but we did it a little differently. So we incorporated much more of the campus community in developing it, and lots of focus groups took place, lots of conversations took place among faculty, staff, and students, among alumni, among board of trustees, among our various advisory groups, to really kind of solidify the plan, and we're coming to the point of putting it together. And there are really kind of 6 pillars or 6 things that we are articulating within the plan, and at this point in time, we're filling those 6 things in with various ideas, various directions, various new ideas for new programmings, new academic programming, how we will continue to flush this out. I have to say that this strategic plan is really looking very strongly on our academic performance. It is really important to us that as we take our place among these top national schools, that we really look at how we continue to formulate and strengthen our academic program. First and foremost, we are an educational institution, and we invite women and men to come to this campus to learn and to become critical thinkers and to understand what they can do with the gift of knowledge in their lives and how they can shape their own wisdom to really change the world in which we live in. So the focus on this plan is very much on our academic life and the success of our students, how they come through this process at Villanova and how they will move on to new and better things. So when we look at this strategic plan, there's several things that we're articulating. The first one is really how this education, this Augustinian education, opens them to reject arrogance and ignorance. Helps them really to understand that we come from many different places, from many different experiences, and how this Augustinian community, this Augustinian educational tradition, can really help them see and benefit from the diversity of our community and the diversity of our backgrounds, whether that be geographic, economic, racial, religion, whatever it might be. But that we encourage each other in our individuality to become part of this community and really reject that sense of any kind of arrogance or entitlement that people may feel they have. The next thing is to really learn and to teach. Now, there's a difference when we talk about learning and teaching. You know, there's a sense of taking in knowledge, but there's also in the Augustinian tradition looking very much at we are all teachers in some way or another. Augustine talks about the different teachers that we are exposed to in our lives, and the greatest teacher of all is the teacher inside of us, that we have to really hone in on who that teacher is, that voice within us that tells us to continue to learn who we are and how we can benefit the world around us. So it's really forming understanding and wisdom and allowing us to really be true teacher scholars and understanding that faculty learn as much from their students as the students learn from them. That's a very Augustinian notion that people learn from each other. And so we teach each other how to understand things and how we prepare people to think critically, compassionately, and to solve complex global issues that they may be faced with. The next thing is we're focusing on how to question, how to debate, how to innovate. How do we really form, as Augustine talks about, this restlessness in us, and how do we harness that restlessness in order to satisfy this search for knowledge, this search for wisdom? And how do we enter into dialogue or debate with each other that is civil? How do we go into this kind of conversation that allows us to understand different perspectives and to really look at different parts of our society, our world, and some of the issues that are facing it? And how do we really use that knowledge, that restlessness, to really contribute to the common good in one way or another? And finally, it's the whole idea of how do we create a global community. Villanova needs to look at its international life. And it needs to look, as we take our place in this national the national status of schools, we really have to look at how do we reach out globally. How do we invite people from around the world to take part in this educational environment here? But also, what are the moments that can help infuse our community to really see the globalness of the world? Students today are exposed to a lot of different things. They know how to scan the web and Instagram and text messaging and all of those kinds of things much better than I think some of us older generation know how to do. So there's a sense of really being in touch with the world around them. But how do we bring that world to Villanova, and how do we allow them to go from this world to that global world? So how do they continue to move forward in one way or another? So it's really, the plan really looks very importantly at the Augustinian approach that in education we discover our authentic selves. And how do we use that authentic self to move forward? So these aspirations are pushing Villanova forward. They're allowing us to take hold and to really cultivate our Augustinian Catholic tradition, and to be people, as we talk about this plan, to be people that are very rooted in our tradition, relevant in our time, but restless for our future. So that's it. Questions? Pat, did I miss anything? Okay, thanks. He could go into much more detail.
We do have the opportunity for questions.
Yes.
The microphone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Father. What's the greatest challenge to accomplish that plan that you see, I guess, going forward?
Money.
Beyond the obvious.
I think it's one of the challenges that we face all the time. You know, I say that every time somebody walks into my office, they want something. They want something, and what they want ultimately comes down to $1. You know, that it is. You know, this is an expensive institution to run. We have lots of very talented people here. Probably our highest expense is our benefits. For our staff and our faculty, those kinds of things that really attract people to be here. But as we formulate this plan, you know, when we look at our academic nature right now, one of the things, I've talked about the buildings themselves, you know, the residence halls. We've done some wonderful job on the athletics program. The campaign has allowed us to transform the Finneran Pavilion, but all the Higgins soccer field. We have a field hockey field. I guess it is a field hockey field out in Plymouth Meeting that was done. A lot of things have been done. The Tally Center. So our athletic program is well-versed, but our academic programming needs to have better facilities. And so we have to look at STEM, our lab situations, the kind of office space we're offering our faculty. How do we create lab spaces for our students and faculty to engage in research? The humanities, the kind of classes, the smart classrooms we're offering. How do we continue to train our students or teach our students in an environment that they're going to go out into the world and find? So all of that is based in finances. And so how we do this and the people that we invite in, it's an expensive proposition for us. And it's going to take us some time to put all that into place. This is not something that's going to happen automatically. So the last strategic plan was very fluid, and we came to things, and as we moved through it, we saw things to change and move around and do things differently. And so, you know, we'll continue to do that, but it's really marking out every year our strategic planning budget and how we continue to allocate our resources and invite other people to help us with those resources. So there will be another campaign soon. And bigger. And I'll be back.
Good morning, Father.
Good morning, Don. How are you?
Thinking about the money. I do believe that money follows good ideas. And hearing you talk about St. Augustine principle, hearing Father Craig talk about St. Augustine principle that goes back 1,600 years, and you talk about global expansion. To me, I think that the wealth is already there in that fundamental, philosophical, or spiritual approach to life. Applicable to business, applicable to anything, science, STEM, whatever. Step forward. And I do believe that that's where the focus should remain, because I believe that the money follows good ideas. Mm-hmm. And I think that God bless the people who raise the money, because they are obviously important, super important. But the university by itself, with this principle that you guys have presented to us today, remind us today, I think is positioned to advance in that global vision that you have, which I applaud. So my question, I don't have a question, I guess the question is, in that global vision, what is it that you envision? What is it that you see short-term, mid-term, long-term?
I think that, you know, we have a number of students every year that look to move to other cultures for at least a semester, sometimes a summer, sometimes a full year, have that experience of being in a different place, in a different culture, experiencing different ideas, different languages. I think I would like to see that expand more, almost to the point of, you know, that's almost something that is required for them to do, you know, that they have this kind of sense of spending some time in another place to kind of expand their horizons in one way or another, but also to have the opportunity to come in touch with different research projects in other places. We have a group of women engineers who went down this summer to the Galapagos Islands. And they came up with this idea in a class that they have here at Villanova to help the Galapagos Islands improve their internet. And they went down there with this whole notion of setting up wireless. That's what I'm trying to think of what it is. A wireless system that would connect these 6 different populated islands, particularly the elementary schools in them. There's no connection to them. And these 5 junior women came up with this idea. They were in a class and they had to come up with a project of some kind, and they had to come up with a global project, a project that would be someplace else. And they pitched this to the government down there, and they were invited to come down and start the program. They went down this summer and they started the whole thing, and they started all the initial things, and they have funding from some companies that are going to help them institute this kind of system. So it's those kinds of things that I think are important too. So it's not only how we can invite the world into Villanova, but how Villanova can invite itself into the world. So, yes. Yeah, shout out.
You talked about giving, and I know we have like very strong alumni engagement. And over the last few years, there's been a big effort to increase alumni participation in the giving rate. A lot of exciting stuff going on campus with the national championship, with the academic plan, the strategic plan. How do you translate that into more alumni engagement, and then ultimately take the next step with participation rate to getting not current donors to give more, but new donors to participate in the plan as well?
We put a lot of effort into greater alumni giving. It's a sign that people who have gone to the school and have been participated in the Villanova community at some point in their life, that they believe in what we're doing, you know, and that in some way or another we've affected their life in a positive way, and so they want to see. My notion to many alumni is, you know, there was some point in your life that you spent at Villanova and you gained something from it. Now, we're not the be-all and end-all of your life. You've gone off and done a lot of other things. But somebody helped you do that. You know, there were people before you that helped you do that. And so, you know, I'm asking you to help others to do that and others to accomplish that. And I think when the university is moving in exciting ways and creating new goals and new ideas, that people naturally kind of rally around us. And, you know, the basketball, I say to everybody, the men's basketball team has helped us enormously. But there's a lot of things going on here. And what the greatest thing they've helped us to accomplish is that they've invited people to look at the university and to see what's going on here and what's happening here and the kinds of things that are happening. I am indebted to our advancement staff. They are wonderful people. They've worked hard. We've raised the giving rate. I think it was, when I started, it was 13%. It's up to 30 now. And that's enormous influx of people giving. We've had the last 2 years this 1842 day that has really been really successful, far more so than I expected. So Heather, wherever you are, thank you very much. She runs that whole program. But it's, you know, so I think it's when we create things here on campus that kind of ignite the imagination of our alumni, you know, and ignite the enthusiasm of our alumni to say, you know, wherever you are walking down some street in New York City or Washington, D.C., or Chicago, Illinois, or San Francisco, or L.A., that if you're wearing that V, somebody says, Villanova, wow, you went to a good school. You know, so we've improved your diploma. From a lady.
Father Peter, thank you for your message. Is this loud enough?
There you are.
Good. I kind of feel like yelling at this point in the morning. My first question, was Delory Hall included in the renovations? Please tell me yes.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You've got two
Well, you know,
previous
if you walked
here.
into Delory Hall, you'd say, it looks the same to me, but there's a lot. There's a lot. It's air conditioned now. The plumbing has all changed.
Oh, that's
the electrical outlets have all changed. It's
so
wireless. It's all this kind of stuff. So
It's wonderful.
Yes.
Because back in 1998, that was not the case.
No.
But I still
Last
loved
year
it
wasn't
there.
the case. So.
That's great. No, my second question, I really enjoyed hearing you talk about tapping into the teacher within, and also, wrapping up your message with, all of this is about encouraging authenticity. Just, for the next, whatever, just share with me, how do you think that message is being carried on campus with the undergraduate and graduate students at this point?
I wish I would have. I received a letter yesterday. Ironically, this is not planned. I should have brought it with me. I received a letter yesterday from a senior who graduated in May. An alum who graduated in May, and is now working in a firm in Des Moines, Iowa. So, and he wrote me a 5-page letter talking about what he discovered at Villanova. The best gift he discovered at Villanova was himself. And that on the way out, and I knew him, he worked on a lot of different things. He worked on orientation, he worked on Special Olympics, he did a lot of different, he was very active on campus. And at the baccalaureate mass, he used this whole thing on the baccalaureate mass, I was walking down the aisle and he was sitting on the aisle with his parents and his family. And I walked up to him and I said, "Joe, good luck." And he said, I went home and I wrote that down, good luck. And he said, because it wasn't goodbye, it was good luck. You've got all, and he went on and on about I've been given all kinds of opportunities here. I've learned about myself. I've learned about other people. And you weren't saying goodbye to me. You were wishing me good luck to continue that. And so it was, I mean, I'm sitting in my office and tears are running down my eyes. But I thought this kid could hardly, noticed who I was. And he was just like, thank you to everybody at Villanova for helping me to become a better me. So, that's a good way to end, Joyce.
Yes, that's perfect. Thank you, Father Peter. Do you want the crutches? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to watch out of our corner of our eye to make sure. Just a few updates from the Villanova School of Business, since this is an opportunity. And those people who have come in, and just please feel free to get seats. Wherever you need to go, that would be great. I want to have this opportunity just to share a few things, because this is our chance as a larger group of people affiliated with the School of Business about some of the things that have been going on. And then you will be then going back to your own advisory councils and using some of that information to help you with the next part of this afternoon in your meetings. So I'm started my third year as dean, and it continues to just be an absolute joy and honor to be in this role. I think many of you know in my first year, I really tried to focus on kind of a listen and learn tour of what was going on internally and externally, and really try to understand our strengths and our opportunities, and continue to promote the VSB brand to all our stakeholders, recognizing that, of course, we have legacy from CNF, and that's a big part of who we are in our history, and really trying to get our brand out there, as well as really trying to provide what the needed resources we were. And we're doing, I think we all know, we're just doing some fabulous work in our centers, in our advisory councils, with our students, with our faculty and our staff. And a lot of the thanks that enabled myself and the school business to do well really does go to Father Peter and to Provost Majidi for really ensuring that we were building up the academic mission. So we appreciate that. And one of our other big goals that first year was ensuring we had a very successful, which we did, thanks to the help from many of you all, an AACSB reaccreditation of our business school and our accounting program, which was great. In my second year, this past year, really trying to help us continue to move from that regional to national university, the mindset of that, And so a big part of that is ensuring that we secure our financial future in terms of, and how do we do that? Some of that's through our fundraising efforts, which many of you have been a part of, as well as our entrepreneurial programs. So, we have a number of graduate programs. I'll talk about those, a lot. I always mention them. They're very important to us in building our brand, so that we have our strong flagship undergraduate program. And by the way, we have some undergrad students here. So, hi guys. You guys want to wave? Yes? Some of our star undergrads that are here. I think there were a couple others that may be back there somewhere as well. We love to have our students be a part of everything that we're doing. But we also have these 8 different graduate programs, and you have some material at your tables that I'll come back to about that. One of the other big goals for me last year was to really look at our leadership structure and redesign it. So once again, to help us moving from a regional to a national university. So we have a number of just phenomenal, talented chairs, department chairs, associate department chairs, our associate deans, all of our center directors and our faculty directors. And could I just have all of them stand so that you can thank them? Because they're the ones really building this school. Come on, you guys, you got to stand. All of our leaders, come on. There's plenty of you. Jeremy, I see you. All of you guys need to stand. Come on, Melinda, everybody. Yes, thank them. They're very modest, but they are the leadership structure that really enables all of our faculty and staff and our students to be so successful. So we appreciate all of their hard work. Another big focus, of course, has been on enhancing our diversity as it relates to our faculty, our staff, our students, and our notions of inclusivity. And so we've made a lot of progress. We have a lot more to do. I know that's part of the university's strategic plan. That's also part of VSB's strategic plan. Continuing to ensure that we recruit and we retain top talent. People ask me all the time, what's the biggest challenge? And I think to what Father Peter talked about too, that's always a challenge of how do you continue to bring in talented people and make sure you hold on to them. Because we do bring in, on the faculty side, teacher scholars, and they are unique to the academic world out there. Most academic institutions, you have teachers or you have scholars, but we have teacher scholars, and they are such talented individuals. So holding on to them is really very important, because everybody's always after our strong faculty and our staff as well. We have incredible staff. It's amazing the amount that they're able to do, particularly for the good of the students. Enhancing the student experience. I think everybody always hears me talk about our focus at Villanova School of Business is on the students. That's the center of everything we do. And all our decisions need to focus on the students. And if they don't, then we're probably doing the wrong thing. So how do we ensure that every student, from the time we recruit them to the time that they're alums, and we have lots of alums here, have an outstanding experience throughout the entire process? So what does that look like? So we're looking at all of our programs and really trying to ensure that even small things, we take care of them. And so we have to think, every one of us, about what it would be like to be a student and what's that experience like. So I know a lot of our councils have students involved, and we've set up some new councils. Our fantastic, I just saw Melinda German, our fantastic Associate Dean of our undergrad program, Michael Capello, our fantastic Dean of our graduate program. They've done a lot to get student input in terms of really ensuring we're doing all the right things for our students. And then really another thing we've focused on is, what is VSB's role as a leader on campus as it relates to the Augustinian Catholic mission, which is a welcoming and inclusive mission, and really how do we continue to partner to continue to enhance that mission. So we view that very seriously. We're also trying to continue to build our brand and our visibility out there, so that, and we appreciate the support by, and I totally agree with Father Peter in terms of basketball has shown a light, and that has helped us in the business school as well. So we want to ensure that we continue to build the brand for our business school. So what are we doing this year? So last year we started our strategic process along with the university, and in parallel with the university, and at the time when the university was collecting, under the leadership of Provost Majidi, collecting a lot of data from a lot of stakeholders, and I think, what was it, Pat, maybe 3,000 people or something, 5,000, right, across all of our stakeholders. The business school was doing the exact same thing. So even last year, at this exact same meeting, all of you filled out, many of you filled out a form giving your views about not only the university and its strengths and opportunities, but also about the business school. And so we took all of that data, we have interviewed, and we've had lots of meetings with students, with faculty, with employers, with alums. And so now what are we doing with all that? So we're in very similar process that the university is in. We have identified our sort of platforms, and I'll talk a little bit about what those are. And then we are in our ideas about how do we get to implementation as well. So in all of your meetings later today, you'll see what we've done so far in the business school. All of your advisory council chairs have that information. And what we want to do is continue to get your input. So what we've done with all the material we've gotten so far and what we view as our important platforms for the future, and our goal, of course, is to be the top undergraduate and graduate business school in the nation or world as possible. So let me share some very specifics about what's going on in the business school. And one of the things that I absolutely love doing is talking in front of our prospective students about why we are a top-ranked business school and why they would think about coming here. And there's a couple of factors. One of them is, of course, and very important to business students and their parents in particular, is the ROI. Our placement rates for students getting jobs within 6 months generally are between 98 and 99%. Our salaries and bonuses go up. The internships, more than 95% of our students have at least one internship while they're here. More than 70% have multiple internships. And you can find almost any business student, you'll talk to them and they'll say, oh, I had 5 internships. And you're like, how'd you do that? And finish in 4 years. I mean, it's just amazing the amount of work that they do. Well, a lot of that is thanks to all of you for giving them those opportunities and those internships. That really helps them not only to figure out what job to do, but in the spirit of understanding yourself and figuring out what jobs not to do, right? And what perhaps they don't want to end up doing. So we have fantastic ROI, but it's more than, and even on the grad side, our salaries from after finishing go up, the opportunities they have, because a lot of our grad students are either career advancers, career switchers, or want to start their own businesses. And so we have a lot of success there as well, and we're trying to continually figure out best ways to track those metrics. But I think even more important than all this personal success is the fact that our students really are interested in having such a positive impact on the world. And so like many of you, they also do a lot of community service. They continually figure out ways to give back. And I think that's what we like to talk about. So when we're over in the business school, we don't want to just highlight, yeah, you're going to get more money, you're going to get a great job, you're going to get better bonuses, but we also talk about what are you doing for the world? What positive impact are you having on the world? And I would just say that all of you in here have been such great brand ambassadors and role models for our students. And that's why I'm so delighted we're going to be honoring George, because he's such a great example of that. And so many of you have shown our students, wow, yeah, you can get a great job. And wow, you can make a lot of money. And you can be promoted numerous times. But you know what? At the same time, you can proactively give back, not only to your institution, but to the world, and make this a better place. And so our students talk a lot about being business students like this force for good out there. And I think that should make us all feel really proud of them. So it's not just about personal success. I think our councils have done a phenomenal job. I just want to point out that last night we started a new tradition of highlighting, in addition to the chairs of all of our advisory councils, people on those councils that have gone above and beyond in terms of what they're actually contributing and all the hours that they give to our students, whether it's industry treks or interviewing students or mentoring students, or setting up mock interviews and internships and that sort of thing. So could I have all of our recipients of our above and beyond recognition, as well as the chairs of the councils stand. Now, you guys actually have to stand. Come on, or I'm going to start calling out your names. There we go. Can we give them a round of applause? We're just so proud of the work that our advisory council members have done, every one of you in here, and working closely with our faculty and our staff and students. You have made such a huge impact. Like the university, the business school also had record number of admissions, close to 7,000 applicants, not accepted. Don't panic on that. And our acceptance rate has continued to go down. So yes, it's great for us, not so great for some parents. But this year in the business school it was 22% acceptance rate. I share that with you because sometimes there's data out there that says, doesn't everybody get in? And we're like, no, not everybody gets in. And so selectivity is very important, but it went down from 24% and down from the year before at 34%. So it's highly selective. And these are students that the average SATs were 1,400 to 1,510, the mid 50%. And I know that scares some of you thinking, okay, I couldn't get in today. That would be all of us mostly, right? Their ACTs, the average 32 to 34 in the business school. We brought in more women in our freshman class, 44% women in the freshman class, which is, yes, you may cheer for that. That's exciting news for us. I know the employers are that's very important to them. We hear from our employers all of the time, every day, about we need more women in business. We need more students of color in business. We need more diversity in business. So from you all, you're letting us know that. Now, still overall, we still have only about 41% women, so we're still working on that. And we did increase our number of international students, and I think that's, once again, the university has done a fantastic job trying to get the word out there, but we're still at only 7%. And then our underrepresented minorities is at 18%. So once again, we still have a lot of work to do, but we have been on a better path in terms of increasing those numbers. And it is important for us to be able to, once again, help our employers out here be able to meet your needs, to have a much more diverse workforce out there. We've had growth in our grad programs as well. We have over 1,000 graduate students. We have about 1,700 undergrads. So that's great for us, according to all of our different programs. And then we've had some great construction projects, many of them due to all of you, with donor support. So, really thank you for that. We have our new lecture hall, and we're actually going to, in the Dean's Advisory Council, we're going to actually show some of these. But if the rest of you, while you're over in Bartley after this meeting, please feel free to go and check those out. We have a new lecture hall, thanks to Frank and Mara Perrier, and it's really in fact, it's smarter than even we are, because we have to now have training to how to use it. But our faculty using it are so jazzed about this, and it has flexible space, which enables it to be used for multiple purposes. We actually use some of our donor support to create something that's right now informally called, and this is a naming opportunity, called LAIR, which is the Laboratory for the Advancement of Interdisciplinary Research. What we discovered was that our faculty really needed some space for doing research with students. We have a lot of our prospective students ask us, even in the business school, ask us about research opportunities. And so we now have this space where our students and faculty can do research together, particularly our faculty in the economics, marketing, and management areas, because we already have our quantitative finance lab, which we're continuing and want to continue to upgrade as well. And then we were able to use some of your support to help our adjunct offices, which I think is great because some of you are adjuncts, so you'll get to use that space, which is great. And then the university was able to help us in construction with some of our tables and chairs in what we call our garden level, which some of you will see is our basement, actually. But we have a lot more to do. Some of you as alums, you come back and you're like, oh my gosh, it's so spectacular, everything is beautiful, and that is true. But I had the joy sort of this summer visiting probably about 10 or 15 about 15 different business schools, top schools in the nation, and that's important because we have made a lot of progress, but we have more to do. Because remember, prospective students come and they look at us and they look at their the competitive set. And as much as we want them to focus just on academics, that's not all they focus on. They look at a lot of other things. So, Father, I was thinking if we could have some lakes, waterfalls, some pools, I think we'd get everybody in the world because we have the best academic institution already, right? So, yeah, that landscaping is actually very important to prospective students. And what the space is that they'll be living in and studying is very important to them. Fundraising, we've had a really positive impact, especially on our building fund. I always like to thank you all for the Dean's Fund for Strategic Initiatives, which I don't know, Pat, you might have started that, but what a great idea. And I will talk to you all later about in the councils about how we've actually spent that, but we use that heavily for student-based kinds of services. For our staff support that help our students with advising, with mentoring, to help our faculty who are doing research, working with the students. So we're very frugal and careful about every dollar that we have and how we spend that in the benefit of our students. That's very important to us. And then where we're going with our strategy. So in terms of the strategy, similar to the university, we have a number of platforms. We're going to be focusing on all of our programs, our 9 different programs. That's our undergrad and our grad programs. Research efforts by our faculty, how can we continue to support them? Our diversity and inclusion initiatives, a holistic student experience. And by that, we talk about the academics, the moral foundation, and then what we like to call like school spirit and fun. Like that, because remember, students use college and grad school even as an opportunity to not only find themselves, but social connectedness. So what are we doing on all those fronts holistically for the student? Our brand and marketing and our engagement with alums. And one of the questions that came up was about alums. There's a lot in the Villanova University strategic plan as well as in our strategic plan about alumni. And how can we not just come back and say, can you all contribute more, but how can we give more to you in terms of lifelong learning? So I'm really excited about that as part of the strategic plan. So today in your advisory council meetings, you will be seeing more about our strategy. We'll give you all that information and what we've learned so far. And our goal in doing that is to continue to get your ideas. So please give us feedback about what do we need to do and what else can we do. Okay, so I'm going to stop here. Are there any questions at this point, maybe a couple questions about what's going on in the business school? I was that clear. Yes?
Dean, I'm very curious to know more about the entrepreneurship initiative or program that you have. To me, as a business person, business owner, is a critical element. Teach the students to survive on their own, to come up with their own ideas, to execute, and be CEOs and founders as many times as possible. So what is the university commitment on that development? Many universities are doing something equivalent, similar. What is the uniqueness about the experience in Villanova?
So you said entrepreneurship, is that correct? So I'm glad you brought that up. I see my department chair back there from management, Dr. Bernarda Quigley. And of course, our provost, which oversees our Innovation, Creativity, and Entrepreneurship Institute. So I think you're in the final stages of the new director. Is that right? And so I know there's a big continued focus and interest and excitement about the institute, the ICE Institute, but also in the business school. I hear what you're saying. I totally agree with you. In the business school, we need to do more as it relates to entrepreneurship. We get a lot of students who come in, who ask about that. Many of our student athletes as well, who ask about entrepreneurship opportunities. So we're actually in the process of hiring additional faculty in that space. We'd really like to make a concerted effort to do more to be able to prepare students better for future. We don't currently have a lot of faculty in that space right now in the business school, and I think we would agree that we need those people because that's a really important area, and we have a lot of students that would love for a business school to do more in that space. So that's what we're doing. We're looking at hiring additional people over this next coming year, and then working closely with the ICE Institute. We'll have some of the practical kinds of programs as well as some of the conceptual and the content as well. Anybody want to add anything? Narda, Pat? Okay. So I think it's a great question, and we do think it's very important, and we're really going to invest in that space. Another question or two? Okay, then I'm going to, and obviously feel free at any time if you have additional questions down the road. I want to go ahead and we're going to shift gears a little bit and really talk about one of the big reasons why we're here in addition. So it's my honor to recognize this year's recipient of the Reverend Joseph C. Bartley OSA Alumni Medallion. This annual award recognizes alumni who have distinguished themselves in their careers, demonstrated service to their communities, and extraordinary service to the Villanova School business. It is the highest distinction that's bestowed to a VSB or CNF alumni, and we have had just impressive winners over the past years. The medallion is named after Reverend Joseph C. Bartley, and the award recipient embodies the Augustinian ideals of Veritas, Unitas, and Caritas. Father Bartley's life and ministry are remembered as more than just the name on the building here on campus. He was born in Lawrence, Massachusetts in 1893, and after completing his collegiate and theological studies at Villanova, he was ordained to the priesthood at the St. Charles Seminary in 1919. He received his PhD in economics in 1922, and for the next 40 years was associated with Villanova College. In 1928, when the College of Commerce and Finance, CNF, which many of you fondly remember, was established, he became its first dean. Father Bartley held this position until his death at the age of 69 in 1962. He's buried on campus near the St. Thomas of Villanova Church. Bartley Hall, the home of the Villanova School business, is named in his honor. So this year, the award selection committee, comprised of VSB staff and faculty and input from alums, met to review the nominations, and we've chosen George W. Coleman for his many years of service and philanthropy to VSB and to Villanova University. A little bit about George. George earned his accounting degree from the College of Commerce and Finance in 1978. He's now retired, although we kid him that he's really still working for Villanova because he's here all the time and he's constantly doing things for us. So he's on the payroll, but not on the payroll, I guess. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, exactly. He's had a very impressive professional career. I think many of you know that, but I'll tell you anyway. He most recently held the position of Managing Director of Credit Suisse in the Investment Banking Division based in New York. He was Vice Chairman of the Global Equities Department. Mr. Coleman served as a member of Investment Banking Management Council, the Global Equity Management Committee. He served as the co-chair on the Managing Director Evaluation Committee for numerous years, and he had been appointed previously as the co-lead chair of the bank's annual Managing Director Evaluation Committee. He's held leadership positions for over 25 years. I think we just stop at 25 because, it keeps us young, right? He joined Credit Suisse First Boston in 1986, and I think this is interesting. He joined in the associate training program, and I think he said that you got your foot in the door thanks to a fellow alumnus, Jim Giordano, who was a class grad from Arts and Science. So that's another great story of Villanovans helping Villanovans. Later he went on to become a coverage sales trader. Once he graduated, he was named head of the U.S. group. He was promoted to head of global coverage sales training. He was promoted to head of sales trading and America's distribution. And then he was appointed co-head of America's equity. So he has this illustrious professional background. For Villanova, George has been involved in, I think most of us all know George, he's been involved in practically everything. He's been on the Accounting Advisory Council, the Dean's Advisory Council, the Reunion Committee, the President's Advisory Council, the Regional Campaign Committee, the Campaign Executive Committee, and numerous things for VSB, especially always takes the time to mentor our students, and that is so important to us. Outside of work and Villanova, and I don't think there could possibly be any time left over, but he has found time to be involved in a lot of other community activities. St. Jude's Research Hospital, Boys and Girls Club, Shepherd's Catholic School, among many others. So if you've had the pleasure of knowing George or meeting him, and I think most everybody here has, you know that he speaks his mind frankly, tells you like it is, which I think we all love him for that. And at the same time, he just has this tremendous heart for and love and passion for Villanova University. He is joined here by his lovely wife, Katie, and his daughter, and his other daughter is, oh, there she is, come on up, come on. Oh, you're filming, okay, all right, great. All right, so we appreciate that some of your family is here. So it's my great honor to recognize, thank, and award George Coleman with the Bartley Medallion. So, George.
Wouldn't be happy, but I'm trying to get this right. George, on behalf of everyone at Villanova, for everything that you've done for not only the university, me personally, but also the Villanova School of Business, it is my honor and pleasure to award this to you.
Thank you. Thank you. You're a good friend.
Peter, come back.
Thank you. Thank you.
So excited. So we are now going to have a fireside chat to give you all a chance to learn a little bit about who George Coleman really is and how he ended up being so successful. And then I know he'll be here for a little while afterwards in case you have any additional kinds of questions. So,
Before you ask me a question,
yes,
can I
jump in.
No, but can I thank Father?
You're welcome.
And Joyce, Pat. Now he's not here. And actually, you think back to Dean Monahan and Jim Danko, all of people who had a lot of impact on all the nice things you said about me and so on. So and then. Before we get into the questions,
Yeah.
I'd like to thank my wife. I have 3 kids. My daughters came here. One graduated 2008. One graduated 2011. My son didn't deserve to go here, but we love him. We love him unconditionally.
That's not on tape, is it?
We'll
It's blackmailing the brother.
I speak my mind. But in all seriousness, Katie, we're married for 35 years, and like none of this would happen to me at Credit Suisse would have happened without your support.
Aw,
Okay.
that's great. Well, and I think you have, where are other people that work there with George? I know, there we go, one person,
Yeah,
okay.
yep.
And I know Caitlin was here earlier, she probably had to go teach now. Okay, so we would love to first maybe just ask you about your leadership philosophy. So that's a big question, but tell us, what can you tell us about how you view yourself as a leader and maybe your philosophy behind it?
So I was really fortunate in the mid-'90s when I got one of my really big promotions. I went to a dinner to benefit Navy SEALs, that their families that had died or bad things that had happened to them, et cetera, and became friends with a couple of them. And one of them said to me, you know, George, when it comes to leadership, if they won't follow you, it's not their fault. And so it's on you. And so it's on you to kind of figure out exactly how you're going to lead them. And for some reason, my whole life, and I know we're going to talk about it some more, Joyce, but like I've always kind of had this lead from the front kind of mentality, and like it's like you can't really ask people to do things that you wouldn't do yourself. And so my philosophy is that that's how you engender confidence, and you kind of get them to think about following you. And if you just think about what Father sat in his chair and talked about, you know, in strategic vision, you know, it's like, I think about like, to be a leader, you have to have this vision of where we're going.
Yeah.
And then you have to articulate it to people, and then you have to execute on it. And it's a lot easier to do that when the leader is doing it from the front. And, you know, again, we're good friends, so, but it's like, you know, look at all the great things that happened here. It wasn't an accident. And so, like, leadership matters a lot, and how you go about creating the vision, executing on the vision, and how you personally conduct yourself has a lot to do with it.
And so, like, you don't just one day have that philosophy. Where'd it come from? I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, so probably similar to many people in this room, I'm the grandchild of immigrants. My dad's side from Scotland, my mom's side from Newfoundland, obviously before that Ireland, you know. And my grandmothers came here in 1920, 25, something like that. And they really never had any education. I was lucky in that my mom's had me early in her life, so my grandmothers weren't that old, so they were like, I was involved in their life for a long time. And one grandmother, my dad's side, was a maid on Park Avenue. They lived in the Bronx. My other grandmother lived in the Bronx, and she worked as a cafeteria aide in a public school. And the only reason I tell you that is that this notion of kind of no job is too small, as my career evolved and as I had to lead people, I was always thinking of my grandparents. And like, if I looked down on somebody, I was looking down on my grandmother. And so I would say that another big factor in my life was my father. My dad went to, you know, grew up in the Bronx, and didn't go to college, came home from Korea, got a job at United Parcel Service, stayed there for 35 years or so. I'm sure many of you interact with that company every day. And every single person in that company during his time started out as a driver, even the CEO. And my dad's career, he drove, and then he did a bunch of different things. He moved up. He was kind of a human resources person. And I would go, at the time, I grew up in Westchester County, and UPS's headquarters was in Greenwich, Connecticut. And so I would go to my dad's office for various different reasons, and I would see these people, like, working in these glass offices that were on top of each other and sharing secretaries, and it was the CEO and the CFO. I mean, none of this grand stuff that I saw like in Wall Street, I can tell you that. And so that culture of UPS and stuff was instilled in me at the dinner table. And their culture is very much of they're all in it together. And so they're all in it together, they're all humble about it, and they all, those of you who know the story, became pretty wealthy as the company grew because they were part of growing it. And I'd say the last thing that instilled the things in me was I was really lucky to be a Boy Scout. And, you know, you can be 12 or 13 years old and be given a leadership responsibility because you're in charge of a patrol of like a dozen people who are your age. And so you're kind of like, how am I going to lead these guys that are my friends?
Yeah,
you know, and that happened. Then, believe me, when you get a promotion on Wall Street and you're 38 and you've got to lead a bunch of guys that are 50, it's hard. And you have to kind of think, because they think they're smarter than you, and they're certainly more experienced. So my Boy Scout experience, whether in terms of being given leadership roles at a very young age, it stayed with me my whole life.
Probably have a lot of people that were in the Scouts, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, whatever, right? How many people were in the Scouts? Come on, fess up. Oh my gosh, that's incredible.
Yeah, and they're all winners here.
Yes. I know I was in the Girl Scouts and I was a Girl Scout troop leader, so I know what you're talking about there with the, but that's so interesting because you're talking about you obviously had to use influence skills with people of your own age or people who are older.
Right.
And without like the exact authority to be able to get people to do things. And so those experiences and what you heard from your grandmothers and from your father, it sounds like have always stayed with you in terms of leadership, yeah.
Without a doubt, without a doubt. I mean, it's the worst leader in the world is the one that says, you have to do this because I'm your boss.
Yeah.
Like, that's just stupid. You know, and you need to convince them that it's in their best interest to buy into like what we're trying to accomplish, whatever that happens to be,
Sure.
whatever that happens to be. And I think a great leader needs to recognize that, you know, you have a responsibility to teach your employees that, like, hey, you know, we're trying, this is what's in it for you. We're going to try to take you to another level. And it doesn't work all the time, to be honest.
Right.
You know, I mean, but my success, I think, revolved around my ability to convince people that, you know, this is our shared goal, this is where we're going, this is how we're going to get there, and oh, by the way, this is what's in it for you, and they have to believe that you're going to help them get there. I tell a lot of people, a lot of you know me, that I think of life as these like 3 to 5 year cycles.
Okay.
And what does that mean? So when you left high school, were you happy or sad? I'll answer for everybody. The answer is both. You're sad you're leaving your friends, but you're excited you're going to Villanova or wherever you're going to go for the next chapter. And then when you leave Villanova, are you happy or sad? And the answer is both, because you're ready for the next thing. Well, your career is the same thing. And your boss's job is to recognize that, okay, I'm going to give you this task, and I'm going to help you achieve whatever we've discussed you're going to achieve. And you just, and I will tell you that it's amazing, at least when I think about the youngest people who would join Credit Suisse, like after the first year, they'd go, I got it. I go, you ain't got it. But they were good. They were talented. And so they would, I'd say, just come back to me in a year and tell me, like, you know, what you think. And at the end of the second year, they go, oh my God, you're right. I can't believe how much you learned in year 2. And then by year 3, they got it. And, you know, and then if they're really good in year 4, they're like, hey, George, what's next? And if you want to retain them, you know, you need to be kind of saying to them, this is the plan. This is, I want to retain you, and so this is my vision for you. So, I mean, it's a little bit of a tangent, but.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
And so you also, when you and I were talking, said that another influence is what you read. So I think people would be interested in that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I like reading books about autobiographies of really successful people, whether they're ex-presidents or Henry Ford or Thomas Edison, Steve Jobs, et cetera, et cetera. You know, it's just so interesting that, like, you learn that people are not perfect people, that they all have their imperfections. But somehow, some way, these people find a way to lead and have, you know, really big impact on society in general. So it's kind of like what I enjoy. And, you know, I'm certainly know it probably is in my DNA in terms of how I'm conducting and interacting with people.
So learning from, it sounds like you learned not only what they did that was successful, but then the mistakes they made, and maybe that impacts you too in terms of how you're going to continue, you know, how you're going to behave yourself. Yeah.
So let me tell you, on Wall Street, there's a lot of mistakes, and when there's mistakes, it's expensive. The biggest thing you can do wrong as a manager is to intimidate them, because then they won't tell you when there's a mistake, and then it gets to be really big. And even sometimes, like, someone winds up going to jail. And so I tried to have a philosophy of, it's okay to make mistakes, it's not okay not to learn from them. And I would tell people that, let's be really clear, if you make a mistake and you come see me and those of you who know me know that I do have a wee bit of a temper, that I'm going to yell at you. I'm going to give it to you because I'm not going to be happy, but I won't fire you. And we'll get through it together, and we'll lock arms, and we'll fix this. If you don't tell me, and there's been a mistake, I promise you I will fire you.
Oh, that's interesting.
You know, and so and it worked for me because people would come to me all the time and say, "Hey, George, I'm kind of embarrassed, but you know, blah 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 blah," and I'd say, "Okay, it's not great that this happened, but we got to deal with it." And so you know, my children are tired of hearing this, you know, because you know, like we all make mistakes. You know, and I think it's the relationship you build with them, whether it's employees or your friends or your family, is how you react to it. You know, and to me, it's a learning opportunity, it's a teaching opportunity, and it's back to my original point of they have to believe in you,
right,
that you have their best interest at heart, and you're trying to get them to the next level.
Well, and I think describing it that way in terms of we're going to work on this together to get to the next, I think clearly would communicate to people you do have their best interest at heart and you care about making progress with them, which is a great way to think about it. So you also had told me that, and the quote is that you said, it's amazing what we can accomplish if we don't worry about who gets the credit. So where did that belief come from for you? Because you know you have people who focus on themselves and making sure they get the credit, and so
yeah, there's a lot of that on Wall Street. The people taking credit for things that maybe they didn't do or something. It comes from General George C. Marshall, who's my favorite person of all these books I've ever read, and I think that you know, I'm far from a history major expert and such, but you know, General Marshall put the country's interest ahead of his own personal interests. And he did things that were good for all of us and not for him. And like, you know, there's lots of people that think he would have been a president instead of Eisenhower. He could have been the supreme commander on D-Day. And so you can take that concept and trickle it down into our lives every day. And it's again, and I'm sure the Augustinians would counsel us to be modest. You know, and you know, that quote speaks to modesty, right, Father? Right. And so it's kind of how I've tried to conduct myself as a person, you know, as a friend, as a colleague, as a supervisor, et cetera. So it's part of my I try to make it part of my core. I'm far from perfect. But
that has to be really, when you think about, when you talked about Wall Street, that has to be really tough because you're in an environment with a lot of people doing that, right? It's about me, it's about me, it's about me. And so you're in it for the, I guess, in one sense, for the long term.
It's
not in
long-term
terms of, yeah.
I mean, you know, I mean, I worked at one place for 30 years. I mean, like, you know, you know, I could have left for more money or more of this many, many, many times. And, you know, and I was easy to have that in my mind because my dad worked someplace for 35 years. And I get it that the world's changed, and I tell, and if anybody in this room is under 30, that I think you should actually do 2 or 3 things between 22 and 30 and explore, probe, et cetera. And hopefully by the time you're 30, you kind of settle on something and, you know, spend your 30s perfecting it, and then you spend your 40s and 50s making some money. You know, that's always important. You know, we got to be humble, Father, but we need money.
I know that. That was the first thing he said when the question came. What do you need? Money, right? And that goes back to our notion of personal success and yet success, because obviously you've been personally successful, but then you've also been able to use that success for the good of this place and other parts of the world, which has been fantastic. So you also, so you're one of 5.
Right.
And you have 4 sisters?
I have 4 sisters.
Which I think, personally, this influenced his love of helping women to advance as well. But tell us about maybe the role that your mother played and maybe inspiring you. Yeah.
There's a big role for a little person. I mean, she said she was 5 feet, but that was a fugazi. But she, yeah, I told you, she grew up in the Bronx, and she went to St. Vincent's in the west side of Manhattan and became a nurse. I was born there. I bet you if I ask for a raise of hands, there'll be 20 people in this room that were born there. It happens all the time because that's where Irish Catholics went to have their children. But she was a lifelong learner. In addition to having 5 kids by the time she was in her early 30s, she went to Hunter and got her bachelor's, and then she went to Columbia and got her master's, and then she went to NYU and got her PhD when she was 62. Wow. I'm 62. Believe me, the idea of me working on my PhD is like frightening to me. But I guess the story that I told you, Joyce, that I remember the most is maybe I was 10 or 12 years old, and she was a visiting nurse. And I don't know why she brought me. Maybe, I don't know why, but I went with her. And we went to Mount Vernon. I lived in Larchmont, which is a nice place, and we went to Mount Vernon, which is not so nice place. And she was caring for this African-American man that I guess I subsequently realized that he probably had diabetes because he'd had his leg amputated. And we go into his home, which was not a nice place. And I have to admit, I was a little afraid. And she did what she had to do to care for him. And it's her caring for him is this, and this is one story. There's lots of them, but it speaks to, like, she just cared about the little guy. She cared about the people who just were in a bad way and needed help. Mm-hmm. And I think she had that job because she liked making some money and she liked using her mind. But I also think that she was out there doing what she thought was the right thing. And that's always kind of been inside me, mm-hmm. that like I have to, remember her leadership to me in terms of, doing the right thing and thinking about, okay, how am I going to, look out for the little guy? And, when you become successful and these jobs, you have a lot of power. And you have both financial resources and stuff, and I think that you have a responsibility about how you're going to use it. Mm-hmm. And so my mom had a tremendous influence on me on that.
That's great. I mean, I can tell that that's impacted you in terms of wanting to help, people, and always thinking about what your role is and wanting to be able to do that and making a positive impact. Mm-hmm. You also, and I think you told us a little bit when you were talking about people coming to you just to let them know, like, if they made a mistake. You're a big believer in feedback, I know. Yeah. And the importance of feedback for both personal and professional growth. So yeah, can you tell us more about that? Because I think that's important for all of us, right, in terms of getting feedback or soliciting it.
Yeah, I would just say to everybody here, and there's obviously some people here much more successful than I am or was, but like my view is that the very best people crave feedback, and my advice to young people is, and I'm looking at my good friend Angela, like you have to demand it, and let's just say, I don't know what the numbers are, but like let's say 50% of the managers shouldn't be managers. And so if you have one of those, then you're going to have to demand it. And then conversely, and my idea of kind of like you have this responsibility to take people to the next level, you can't do that if you don't give them feedback. And you have to give them feedback that is direct, honest, fair, but they're never going to get there. And the people who I have learned are not going to make it, so to speak. They hear the feedback, they kick it to the side because they just don't want to deal with it. And the people who are really ambitious say, give me more. Mm-hmm. They ask for more. And so I felt like in my own career, I was constantly asking for how can I improve? What do I have to work on? What's not what's next for me, even though you do need to ask that at some point. But it's just massively important. I can't emphasize it enough.
Well, you're talking about it from the standpoint of, for all of us really, about the importance of getting feedback in order to make improvements, right? And that some people don't do that at all. They don't want the feedback, and then how can they possibly improve, right? You also said, which I think is just great, to win, in your organizations, you really need to have the right talent.
Right.
And I
Right.
know you're a big believer in, I mean, that fits in with your notion of feedback as well. You're a real big believer in growing talent and then finding talent. And you've done a lot for us here in that space as well, so.
Yeah, you want to win? How does Jay win? He's a good coach and he gets talent, and mercifully, the good news is he's getting better talent because we keep winning. Winning begets winning. But my time at CS, talent is massively important, and if you only allow yourself to interact with people that you may be more comfortable with, i.e. they look like you, and you're just freezing out huge pools of talent, whether they be people of color or people from other countries or different cultures or women and such. And I learned very early on that, I didn't really care, like if you were a guy or a gal or what color you were or if you were Irish or Indian. I just wanted you to get the order. But I wanted you to do it the right way. You just cannot win if you don't have the right people.
So you've helped us a lot with getting, to that point, getting more women excited and our students of color excited about careers in finance, which we know is, when we think about it as a business school in terms of our majors, economics, finance, real estate are they have the least numbers of women. And so you've been really instrumental. And so part of that, I guess, is to your point of understanding we've got to expand the pool. Yeah.
Well, I think that Villanova's role is to create more talent that, you said earlier, the employers are begging you for more of that talent. And the sea change that I've seen in my 30 years is gigantic. I mean, it's embarrassing, but I think I won't talk about my first 10 years about how things were done or things that happened. But, there are really special programs that are very aggressive on all of Wall Street. I can't speak for any other industries that are very geared towards trying to make it easier for women to navigate into the investment banks and banks and people of color as well. And what I find I'm doing here, pushing people at Villanova is, well, let's get our students in there.
Yeah.
And let's make sure our students are aware of these opportunities. And so that's the pressure you and your staff are feeling for me in terms of saying, I know we have these women and people of color that are here are more than qualified. And when I was at CS and working on a lot of these type of issues, is we had all these special programs, and it would annoy me, frankly, when there weren't more women from Villanova applying for these positions. And we can get into the details later about these things, but these programs. But the reality is, on Wall Street, you cannot get a summer internship until your junior year. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. However, for women and people of color, there actually is one when you're a sophomore. And there are numerous workshops and all kinds of things, et cetera, et cetera. And so, I just see 1 + 1 making 5, meaning that Credit Suisse can get great talent, and if they happen to come from Villanova, bring it on.
We're all for that. Yeah. So you've been
and
really.
I'm sure all of you feel the same way, and I mean.
They do, because they're all competing with you for those same really
Sure
great
they are.
students.
They should.
Yeah. But I know you've helped us with, we did start, and George is great about, he's so well read that he's constantly sending articles to us, which is really awesome. You're laughing, Kate. Is he sending them to you too? But no, it's actually great, because he's always sending us articles about what's going on out there in the industry as it relates to any of these initiatives. But I know you're really proud of the fact that one of your former employees, who's one of our professors now, Caitlin Danhauser, along with Shelley Houghton and some of our other finance faculty, have been fantastic about starting a women in finance group last fall, and have really been active, and you've been a huge supporter of that, which we appreciate. And I know many of you in here also feel the same way, so thank you for that. So George, you also are like a zealot, I think, about telling people that it's really important to give back to Villanova. So why, from your perspective, do you think this is so important?
Well, it all starts with, you referenced it. So, Jim Giordano at a dinner I was at, said to me, how come you don't work on Wall Street? And I kind of said, well, I don't have an MBA or something. And he goes, nah, you'd be great. And he made a phone call that changed my life. It changed my life. And now granted, I had to get the job and I had to go do it. Right. But he opened a door for me. And then when I first started at First Boston, which became Credit Suisse, it's all the same thing. There was a guy named John Coleman who's like 10 years older than me, I think, and he was already there. He was a managing director. He ran the high yield area, and I was an equity guy, so we didn't really have anything to do with each other professionally. But the fact that I could go talk to him, and I created him as a mentor, and the fact that I would say, hey, John, I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about that, and frankly, he just let me talk, and gave me the confidence that I could do it. But there's this thing always around that, like, okay, there's a powerful managing director who's got my back, and it's important. It's important. So if you take Jimmy introducing me to credit to First Boston, John looking after me, all my family and friends and stuff, like, Villanova is just part of who I am, and it never would have happened if it weren't for these people. And so if my life is so good, and you go back to my mom, like, look out for other people, then means I need to look out for Villanova, because Villanova looked out for me. And and I've said this often, that coming here was not a 4-year decision; it was 40. Well, next year it'll be 41. But I'll have to change my story. But it's a big part of my life, and it's fun.
And even when you were here, and I think you have like fraternity brothers here, don't you? Yeah, there we go. They're all, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
there's plenty of them
all the
in here.
DTD guys stand up.
Yeah, come on, stand up. He wants you to stand up. All right.
And let's be clear, I don't think they're here because I'm here. They're here because the same reason I used to come here, is they care, and they're involved. But we had a good thing, a very good thing.
Well, and weren't you like in some leadership capacity when you were in that fraternity?
Yeah, I was the president my senior year, and you could argue it was they had faith in me, or you could argue it was who was going to have to go deal with it when they did something stupid. Mercifully for me, the second never happened. I never had to go see anybody about anything that we did. So, but having that leadership role was clearly another, just like the Boy Scouts or something, giving me the confidence that I could lead people, because again, you're leading your friends. These guys are you're all the same age.
Right.
It was fun. It was special, and 40 years later, it's still special.
That's a pretty close group. And if you all looked around when they stood up, I mean, they are very active. And there are other members of that group that aren't here. That's a really active group. So if you had to give advice to maybe people here about as a way of giving back, and people sometimes say, well, what can I do? Like, what's a way to start? Now, a lot of people in here already give back and do a lot of things, but there are maybe people thinking about that. What would you tell them? What kind of advice?
Well, I'll tell you how that part started for me. So Billy Melchione, after he retired from throwing Dr. J the ball,
we didn't hear that story.
I don't know how many people, well, it doesn't matter. So Billy had a very great professional basketball career, and then he went to work at Salomon Brothers, and then he came to work at First Boston, and he was another one of these guys like John Coleman that are 10 years older than me, and I always felt like I had a friend that I could talk to that would give me feedback that was unfiltered and tell me the truth. Anyway, so Billy calls me one day, but now around 2000, and says, Tim Monahan's the dean of the business school, and he'd like to have lunch with you and me. And I said, sure. I go, what's he want? And he said, he wants us to hire more students. So we had a nice lunch, right, Bill? You know, up on the 27th floor. And Tim came in, and Father, he asked for the order.
Tim's great at that.
There's a personal joke. I'm sorry. And Tim was smart. He was at Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs and everywhere else asking for the order. And I came down here and said we started interviewing the students, and I realized the students were totally up to scratch. They could do the job, and luckily I had the power to make it happen. You know, so you know we just, as long as they went through the process, you know, we got them in. Mm-hmm. And so what I would say to all of you, and so out of that we kind of, Billy Donnell and I decided, another DCD guy, that we need to take this to another level, and so we created this whole panel that was up on this stage for, they still do it, Billy and I did it for 12 years, about teaching how do you prepare for an interview. And so we found the students were totally educated properly, but the kids from Penn were better prepared for coming in interviews. And I don't know where it stands now because this is a long time ago. But like, I think the way you give back is by listening and engaging. So I engaged with Tim and we came up with something, and then Tim left and Danko was here. And so what really took off under Danko, and then when Jim left, you know, Pat was, you know, so my involvement really over the years has been more a reflection of sharing ideas with all of you. Mm-hmm. And so I guess the answer for the group here is, you know, my advice is, you know, hire the students. You know, I talked about how being mentored by Billy or John Coleman, this other guy, Matty Moorhan, had a lot of influence on me. These were people 10 years older than me that really, really helped me have the confidence to achieve many things. And so you can be mentors, you can hire the students. I mean, I think the list goes on and on. I guess you could give to the deans, you know, special funds.
Oh, thanks for making that pitch.
Whatever
Awesome.
you called it. Whatever you called it.
Strategic initiatives, not special funds.
You know.
It's not like I have a boat or extra car or something. That'd be nice, but no.
Yeah.
But thanks for that pitch, which I didn't ask you to give, but thanks. And well, we have it on film too, thanks to your lovely daughter. So those are great ideas, and I think a lot of you do mentor our students, you prepare our students. I think one of the things that you said that I love that so many people in here do is they say, okay, look, you guys have to work on this one thing here, and I'm gonna come and I'm gonna help you guys do it, because I want the Villanovans to get all those jobs. That is just so fantastic that people in here do that, and you've been such an incredible example about that. All right, so George, in your way of just speaking it like it is there anything else you want the group here to know? This is your big chance.
Well,
that could be dangerous for me, but
you know,
Father Peter's worried now.
he has nothing. He's going to love this. He's going to love it. He's heard it. I think that in any organization, culture matters a lot. And all of you own your business, run your business, et cetera, and you understand exactly what I'm talking about in terms of culture. And when I listen to Father Peter talk about all that's been achieved in your 12 years or 13? 13 years. You know, we all have our favorite story, our favorite moment, favorite something. And I really enjoyed being the chair of the campaign in New York. And what I really feel best about collectively is that I really think we changed the culture at Villanova in terms of philanthropy. I think we really, really just turned it completely dead stir. And I want to tell a story, and Angela, you were there. So Father gets his job, and there's a handful of young people who, because of Tim Monahan asking me to, you know, you get your job in 2005, so for 5 years I've been hiring, right? And they come and say, oh, Villanova's got this new president. Oh yeah, who is he? And they go, he's the theater guy. That's what I'm known as.
Yes, exactly.
Not anymore. I haven't heard it in years. And so I go, oh, that's, you know, and they liked you. You had been one of their professors. And so they had a personal connection, and they were fans. You know, they were telling me, George, this is going to be good. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. And and I don't know, the timing, I'm a little fuzzy on this, but I know this is, so somewhere in there, I call Whitey Rigsby, who's my classmate, and a lot of you know Whitey, et cetera, and he works in development of athletics. And so I said, hey, Whitey, there's this new president, Father Donohue. What do you think? And he goes, I'm hearing good things. That's, this is a true story. And so Whitey, I said, hey, Whitey, here's what we're going to do. Is I had HR search 11 Madison Avenue where I worked and say, how many Villanovans are in this building? And the answer was, I don't know, 110, 120, which I was like, holy cow, that's a lot. So I invited Father Peter to come to Credit Suisse and kind of like introduce himself to the world. And what's, pardon me? Or to Credit Suisse. Or to Credit Suisse. Yeah. Credit Suisse. We're not the world, correct. We're to Credit Suisse. And he was, I didn't know him. And so Father Peter graciously comes, and I introduce Father Peter to everybody. And here's the point of the story. I felt the need to say, this is not a fundraiser. And think about that. I got 120 Villanovans in the room, 25% probably make $1 million or more, and it's not a fundraiser? Come on, man. But that was within my culture. That was my journey over these past years of how I changed in terms of asking for the order. And so I know all of you have a similar story. All of you in this room have, changed as well. And so I think that my message as we leave is let's really, really step on this culture. Let's really, really take it to another level. And so if Notre Dame can have 40-something% participation, well, why not us? And if these other schools can have, $2 billion endowments, why not us? Yep. And so I guess my ask as I leave is, like, everybody keep doing what you're doing, and constantly amongst your family, friends, Villanovans, is talk about this changing culture, and don't take it for granted. So,
it's a great message.
Thank everybody.
All right.